Hello?
Hello, Mr. Eftikari. Do you know who this is?
Morpheus?
That's right, it's Morpheus. They're coming, Eftikari. They're coming for your kids.
Who's coming for my kids?
Public education. I can help you, but you must do exactly as I say.
Mr. Eftikari, I'm very glad that you found a way to come to this meeting. Your kids will be going to high school soon, and you'll have a very important decision to make. If you want your kids to get a factory style of education, where they'll be treated as passive objects who will be filled with information and prepped for scoring high on standardized tests, then send your kids to a public school. But if you want your kids to go to a school where they will be valued and the curriculum will be based on their needs and educational goals, then send your kids to a big picture learning school. At these kinds of schools, the students come first in everything. These schools are much smaller in comparison to traditional public schools, meaning there is more flexibility, and it means that there is more personal time devoted to all kids. Learning happens one-on-one. It happens in groups. It also happens alone. Big picture learning is what real education is all about. The learning is real, and the learning experiences are real. You make the choice and take this book.
All right, after reading The Big Picture by Dennis Littky, I am obviously sold on big picture learning schools. Let me tell you why. Starting with the most important, the students come first. There is the approach of one student at a time, and the curriculum is designed to meet the needs and goals of the students. Now, of course, it makes a lot of sense that a huge goal or a huge mission for big picture learning schools is to help students move forward with what they want to do with their lives. But when it comes to curriculum design, it's all about the backward design. The first step in backward design is to identify the desired learning results. And this is what takes place at big picture learning schools because, like I said, the curriculum is designed to meet the needs and goals of the students. It is not focused on the content and definitely not focused on the best way to teach. Next, teachers are known as advisors at big picture learning schools, especially at the school called the Met. I think it's mentioned at least 2,380 times in this book. But it's in these kinds of schools where a great environment is created, where teachers and students are able to learn from one another. According to the experts, the best learning takes place when it is real, relevant, and has meaning, which is what now brings me to stage 2 of backward design. Specifically, performance tasks as acceptable evidence. At big picture learning schools, students have the opportunity to learn through internships. And internships are authentic experiences for students. These are experiences that these students will never, ever forget. And as I said earlier, think about it. Let's put this all together. Internships are real, relevant, and have meaning. When you look back at your experience when you went to high school, do you remember your teachers interacting with professionals from the real world and even bringing them to your school? Probably not. Next, cannot forget about stage 3 of backward design. Plan learning experiences and instructions. What will the students be able to understand and apply? And do big picture learning schools have this covered? Well, they definitely do. And I'm not talking about tests. I'm talking about portfolio defenses and exhibitions. According to Jay McTighe, the main goal in curriculum design is to allow students to demonstrate understanding through transfer. Now, in this kind of situation, at the end of the year, of course, imagine this scenario. Can the students use what they have learned in a new situation? Can they teach what they have learned to a complete stranger? Are they able to answer questions from a panel that includes advisors, principals, parents, and community members? Well, the students get the opportunity to do this. They get to answer questions and demonstrate what they have learned at the end of the year. The bottom line is that exhibitions give students the opportunity to take control of their learning. They own their learning, plain and simple. If you're looking for more connections between big picture learning schools and backward design, look no further than the 5 learning goals of big picture learning schools. Those goals are empirical reasoning, quantitative reasoning, communication, social reasoning, and personal qualities. These 5 goals have essential questions attached to them as well, such as how do I prove it? What do other people have to say about this? This is directly connected to stage 1 of backward design, having those essential questions. And also, these 5 goals are also related to the 6 facets of understanding. Students will be able to explain, interpret, apply what they have learned. They'll be able to see the big picture. And they'll also be able to ask themselves questions such as, what do I bring to this process? It is these questions, this all demonstrates excellent understanding of transfer. We cannot forget about the 3 R's of big picture learning schools, and those are relationships, relevance, and rigor. Relationships provide students with the built-in support system that they need to succeed and feel valued. In terms of relevance, well, learning through internships, that is the relevance right there. And as for rigor, the students get to demonstrate what they have learned. They show proof of rigor through their portfolio defenses and exhibitions at the end of the year. At big picture learning schools, students feel safe, respected, and supported. And at these kinds of schools, these are actually smaller schools, meaning smaller number of students. And this provides more personalized learning and more flexibility to meet the needs of all students. And of course, from my point of view, most importantly, big picture learning schools pride themselves on building relationships with students and families. Because let's face the facts, parents know their kids better than anyone else. After reading The Big Picture by Dennis Littky, I must say that I have some mixed feelings. Now, how does this affect me? Well, I would say that it makes me realize what exactly is wrong with public schools, public education. When I look back at the days when I was in public school, especially high school, I feel that it's disappointing that I was unable to understand what was wrong with public education. And I feel as if back then I probably had the mindset where speaking up and, being a little defiant or being, kind of like an activist in a sense, was the wrong thing to do because it would have had a negative effect on my future. But now, in hindsight, I can honestly say that I would have enjoyed school much more if I had the experience that students get at a big picture learning school. How does this affect me from a behavioral standpoint? Well, I like that phrase, practice what you preach. And like I said before, I am sold on big picture learning schools. And, this is a very important question. Do I really want my future kids to, get an education at a public school? Right away, I'm going to say no. I want my kids to go to a school where they will feel valued and where they'll be able to experience learning, through internships and also already get a jump start on their future career of choice. I mean, this is what's so great about big picture learning schools. And as a kid, I wanted to be a play-by-play commentator. And obviously, where I went to high school, there was never really much opportunities for that. If anything, the most opportunities I had to do play-by-play commentating took place when I was in my room playing video games, turning down the volume. And obviously, my parents knew what my passion was, but my teachers did not, because they didn't really know much about me, and they were more concerned about, covering a huge amount of content material in the classroom. Now, how does this information affect me from a cognitive standpoint? Well, this is a very important thing to reflect on and think about a lot, because at this point, I think about students who are in a situation that I once experienced. And there was a time where I didn't think I was going to graduate from high school. I didn't have the support that I needed. Things were tough, but I was able to turn things around. And obviously that's something I was, very proud of. And at this time, there are many students, out in society who are struggling, and they may not be determined to keep going to school. And for many of these students, I feel bad for them because they have a lot of potential, but they don't believe in themselves yet because they don't have the best support, and it's also difficult for them to follow their passions. And I don't see the public school system being able to save a lot of these kids because, public schools, they're just focused on, teaching the content. They're all about, it's the factory style type of education. It's basically, a sink or swim mentality, focusing on grades and report cards. And this relates directly to the words of Linda Darling Hammond. She shared that American society struggles to get away from the factory style of education. And at big picture schools, they don't have that type of coercive and controlling type of environment that takes place at a lot of schools in urban areas with huge populations. A lot of kids could really benefit from big picture learning schools. After reading The Big Picture by Dennis Littky, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. They don't even use report cards very much. There are actual narratives to really genuinely assess how students are learning, how well they're able to understand new concepts. Are they making connections? Are they able to transfer learning? And, at these schools, these principals, advisors, everyone who's involved with helping students, learn and helping students succeed, there is a lot of work that goes into helping these kids. And it's just a shame that, in our society, public schools are viewed as, the best schools to go to, and these other schools that are more innovative are just viewed as different and weird, and they don't get a lot of recognition. So, like I said, this is how I think about everything, cognitively. I hope to see a lot of changes with public education. I know it's obviously going to take a lot of time, but it's best to have that mindset of one school at a time. Obviously, this is not going to be an overnight process.